arts, I have a great admiration for contemporary ceramic artists, and that definitely inspired this project. I ended up creating a ceramic arts resource for K-12 educators who want to bring my love of ceramic and contemporary ceramic artists to their K-12 students. I called it You Teach Contemporary Clay, and yes, a little bit, okay, so I'm going to be reading off my laptop because I can see my notes on here. If I forget to change the slides down here, just yell at me, please. Make sure I'm on track. A little bit about myself since that's relevant to my project. I grew up here in Austin, Texas. Growing up, I loved any type of art. I loved creating. So when I went off to college, I ended up at McAllister College in Minnesota and ended up pursuing a BA in studio art. I focused in ceramic arts while I was there, and then when I graduated, I went down to Taos, New Mexico to fulfill a ceramic arts residency. Spent a few years in Taos, New Mexico. That's where I took this goofy photo, and then wound up back in Austin and eventually pursuing art education. So when I began studying art education, I became aware of a few problematic things. Most ceramic artists that I had met on my journey, including myself, had either not done clay in K-12 school or hadn't done it until their very last high school years. So that struck me as odd because most states, including Texas, require art teachers to have some knowledge of the medium. In Texas, when you take your EC 12 178 exam to become certified, you have to answer questions about ceramic arts, and it's considered part of the Art 1 curriculum. However, most teachers that you meet will tell you that they lack knowledge or the equipment to teach clay. And I've noticed that most curricular materials are basic and don't reflect the exciting things that are happening in the contemporary clay world. So when it came time to plan my capstone project, I began to wonder if I might be able to create change in the area of K-12 ceramic arts. As the ceramicist Stephen Creech said in a 2018 article that he wrote for the Studio Potter magazine, we ceramicists of all backgrounds can help revitalize programs and improve the quality of ceramics experience for students by supporting teachers' development in the medium. We know the value of ceramics in everyday life and have an opportunity to share the appreciation, fostering it in the hearts and the minds of our local educators. As somebody myself who has always really enjoyed lesson plans and creating lesson plans, I thought that perhaps I could be the most useful in creating curriculum material to fill that existing void. Eventually, I decided that whatever I created would become the most accessible if I published it in an online form, so I decided to create a website. My initial and entirely unrealistic plans included video interviewing a diverse group of 6 ceramic artists. I wanted these artists to be a diverse group because, as I learned here at UT, students learn best when they can see themselves reflected in the examples presented to them. I plan to create 18 age-specific lesson plans based on each artist and their work. That was the most unrealistic part. I decided to design a website and upload all of the content to that website. And then I plan to launch that website in January. I then wanted to send it out to 3 different groups of participants and then make changes to the website based on their feedback before presenting today. As Dr. Bang and Dr. Steinecker warned me when I presented my project proposal, my project didn't exactly go as planned. So what actually happened? I received IRB approval in the summer. Then I was able to start reaching out to artists. So I started reaching out to artists in the fall. The first artist to get back to me is Shay Bishop, who's seen here wearing ceramic chaps and a ceramic cowboy hat. He was interviewed, did the full video interview with me in September. And then after interviewing him, I unfortunately was really struggling to find other artists who were able to complete the interview. Even for Shay, fitting in that time to actually have a full-on video interview was a struggle, and a lot of these artists were getting back to me saying, I think your project sounds really cool, I'd love to be a part of it, but I just don't have the time. I'm prepping for a show or whatever it was. And so I realized that I kind of needed to ask something different of them. So I decided, instead of doing a video interview, to do an email interview. And I pared all of the questions down to the 2 most important questions. Once I did that, I had a whole lot more luck. I ended up getting 5 artists on board total, pretty quickly after figuring that out and making those changes. I interviewed all of them and got photo permission from them by December. And then I created 4 lesson plans because I combined 2 of the artists for 1 lesson plan that were adjustable to fit any age group using a lesson plan template by Deborah Stickler-Boyd. I then uploaded all of the content to the website and finished the website in March. Like Michael said about himself, I'm not a very tech-savvy person, so actually putting together this website proved to be very time-consuming, but I did it. So. The final product consists of a website, the 5 featured ceramic artists, 5 interviews, 4 lesson plans, a list of other artists for K-12 teachers to check out, including a form where they can put in suggestions for other artists they would like to see featured on the website, and then a list of helpful technical resources for ceramics, and a placeholder for a community teacher-artist forum, which I would love to eventually get going. The central research questions included my central question, how did my knowledge as a ceramic artist and art educator inform the creation of a website aimed at providing K-12 art teachers diverse contemporary ceramic curricular content? And my sub-questions were, how were today's working ceramic artists introduced to clay? And what advice do contemporary ceramic artists want to give K-12 students interested in pursuing the arts? Shay was extremely supportive of my project. Oh, sorry. By the way, these photos that are here on these slides are from artists who I've featured. I would love to introduce you to all of them, but for the sake of time, I can't do that today. So anyways, back to my central research question. How did my knowledge as a ceramic artist and art educator inform the creation of a website aimed at providing K-12 teachers diverse contemporary ceramic curricular content? The answer to my central research question was reflected back to me when I read this entry to my research journal. When I spoke to Shay Bishop towards the beginning of my research, he spoke about how his partner, Annie Evelyn, had remarked on the division between art education and working artists. She observed that artists are often consulted for the purposes of art education. Shay and Annie think that more of this is needed. Shay also mentioned how important he believes early exposure is for the arts. In the interview, he mentioned wishing K-12 students were more often presented with the art as a subject worthy of pursuing a career in and continuing into adulthood. When I decided to pursue art education full-time, I noticed how removed and or separate the world of K-12 educators and professional artists often felt. It was as though there was some sort of invisible wall between the 2 communities, such that when one looks at curricular material, the voice of the artist, whether living or deceased, is often absent. What better words, I asked myself, to inform yourself as an educator and to inspire young artists with than the words of the artists themselves? And with a rapidly changing world, what better advice to give than the advice of those who are thriving as artists in this day and age? To summarize my answer, my experience as an art educator and ceramic artist inspired me to create a bridge between the average K-12 art teacher and ceramic artist through the creation of an online resource. I did collect some data. The data for the sub-question about their K-12 art education, I ended up analyzing by highlighting the answers, assigning a color to each theme that appeared in the artist's response. I then found the information for each of the following questions in their responses. The questions were, did they do clay in their K-12 schools? When did they first touch clay? how were they introduced to clay, and what inspired them to pursue the arts in general while in K-12. Of the 5 participating artists, only 2 of them were introduced to clay in K-12. The 2 that did get to do clay in K-12 did so for the first time in high school, one of them in 12th grade. Of those that did not learn to do ceramics in their K-12 school, 2 of them touched clay for the first time in college or university, and the other was introduced to clay by a mentor outside of school as a child. When it came time to who and what inspired them to pursue the arts in general, they identified K-12 teachers, art classmates, parents' artistic endeavors, underground cultures, playing in nature, time spent at home creating art with siblings, and the resourcefulness of female relatives. 3 of the 5 artists offered advice to the aspiring K-12 artists. I found that their advice was centered around motivation and fulfillment. Cindy Jimenez said, "Make what you want, the most honest work comes from you, not those around you. It's definitely great to get advice from teachers and peers, but think about what interests you and what you want to put into the world." For example, my artwork is greatly influenced by my friends, family, comics, animation, ancient ceramics. Although some say this is identity work, I think everything you make reflects your identity. Basically, do what makes you happy and what brings you joy. Christy Moreno said, "My advice would be to stay curious about your artistic process and not to get too comfortable in one spot. An artist cannot grow if they decide to stay in their comfort zone." And Yang Soo Kim said, "Be playful, do whatever you want to, paint and make something. Allow yourself to have fun and enjoy that time." I wanted to just quickly walk you through the website. So this is the opening or the homepage of the website. On it you see the artist spotlights. If you click on the photo of the artist, then you're directed to the page that has information about them. Below that, I have the list of artists for K-12 teachers to check out. There are no photos, so they don't have photo permission from those artists yet. There's a little bit of information about the artists, and then there's links to those artists' web pages or Instagram accounts. And then, of course, there's the form below that list where people can suggest artists they would like to see featured on the website. And below that, there's a couple of really high-quality free online resources. They tend to be more skills and technical based. That might be helpful for K-12 teachers. The About the Artist or the project page just sort of tells on that side here what this is all about, what I was hoping to do with this website, what the intentions are. And then there's a placeholder for the forum, which is yet to be. I'm not going to go through all of the artists, but I did want to go and show you one of the artists' page so you know what to expect on the other artists' pages. This is Christy Moreno. There's a photo, of course, of her, and then there's some buttons to the side. One links to the interview that I did with her, one is to her website, and then another is the lesson plan that I created to go along with her and her work. This is just, I'm not going to read this right now, but the information that I wrote up about her and her artwork. That's what the interview page looks like. And then this is the lesson plan. And then if you click here for view and download the lesson plan, you get the full thing. The lesson plans, this is the Stickler Voigt template. It starts with a big idea. For Christy Moreno, that big idea is art can be used to envision a better future. Then it goes into a narrative and an introduction of the artist, which would be presented, appropriately to the students. And then it goes into essential and guiding questions. So for this lesson, those essential questions are: how does Moreno envision a brighter future through her figurative work? How does her style reflect her personal interests and early art experiences? How does her work relate to the science fiction genre? And then, what would a brighter future look like to you? Preparation would include using the big idea of art being used to envision a brighter future. Students would brainstorm what world issues matter most to them and what solutions they can imagine to fix those issues. Students will then create their own personal works that portray their own personal vision of a bright future. Daily learning targets include, I can create artwork that gives my life to my vision for the future. I can express myself using personal style. My style reflects my experiences. I can respond to issues that I see with creative expression. And then I have a suggested single-point rubric for the assessment of student work for the project. Of course, teachers can adjust this as they see fit. I praise them on participation, self-expression, and craftspersonship. Below that are the National Core Art Standards that apply to the lessons and the references. This concludes my presentation. I did want to add, because I was reminded by my wonderful cohort here that limitations are, of course, important to talk about. This is a project that I see as just the beginning of a larger project, but I'd like to continue. Like when I closed, mine only included 5 people. So there's only a certain amount of diversity that you can get when you've only got 5 participants so far. But I would like to extend the breadth of my project to include more and more faces of contemporary play. That's the QR code and the address if you'd like to take a look at the website. It is up. Thank you.